Okay, we're doing this. Oral sessions with Paul Bissonnette. What's up?
I like how we kick it off like that. I don't like the big fancy intros sometimes.
I do that later. I do that when no
do
one
you?
else is listening, because then it's like you're rattling off a million things. Because I hate when people do that to me, because I interrupt the whole time. I'm like, oh yeah, and this, like, I can never just get through a clean.
Or you looked at my Wikipedia and there weren't that many accomplishments, so you're just, let's just roll right into it.
Actually, no, first of all, I do most of my research on Wikipedia, and there's some interesting stuff about you on there.
Oh, great. Looking forward to that.
Here's my biggest note right off the top, though. This Hudson Bay Company blanket behind you. Canada represent.
Yeah, that was actually a gift from Erica Nardini. She sent me. Yeah, that was a Christmas gift. She's been awesome. I mean, of course, an incredible CEO, and not only past work too, just an unbelievable person and an insane motor. Every day she's waking up doing a million things and growing Barstool to the size it is now, and just an amazing person.
She hustles. I mean, when I follow her Instagram and stuff, I'm like, damn, like she is just, and like you can tell that she's just such a no bull kind of chick.
Yeah,
I appreciate. And just like everything she, that she's doing for hockey and women's hockey in particular. Yeah. We'll get into all that stuff, but yeah, she seems cool as all hell.
Yeah. So she, and she's very thoughtful in her gift giving as well. And I just had my birthday last week, and she sent a couple nice bottles of wine over too. So she's, she likes to shower us with gifts. This is awesome.
Those are the friends to have. None of my friends do that. What the hell? No one gives me anything.
Yeah, I have a hard time remembering people's birthdays. If it wasn't for social media, I would have no clue.
100%. Okay, so yeah, it was just your birthday. Happy birthday. What are you, 36?
36 years old, yeah.
We're both
still trying to figure this thing out.
What did you do for your birthday?
Nothing. I got a lot of my partying and craziness in life out of the way early on, and we just had a big road trip as far as Spittin Chiclets in order to bank interviews and some content, which is kind of a new word in the world that's been popping up a lot. And I got home and I just got to relax with my girlfriend and my dog, and so it's been kind of a yin and yang type of life so far, where I got all the partying out of the front end, and now I'm going to get all the work and relaxing done on the back end.
That's the way to do it, though. I feel like you've kind of mastered that craft of like, being on the road, playing hockey, to then like the career that you're settling into now. I mean, you're really managing it quite well. I mean, really, obviously better, no offense to anybody else, but like way better than any other NHL player, like crushing it.
Just like I said, I'm just trying to find a way to grow up here. I'm 36 years old, and now that the podcast has taken on a mind of its own, it's just I've kind of adapted this responsibility. But it's been fun. It's fun to put a lot of time and energy to something and see the rewards and benefits from it. And it's opened up so many fun doors where I've got to experience all these amazing things. And I would credit that to hockey as well. I don't think I've ever been over to Europe unless it was to play hockey in either some tournament or at the NHL Premier Games. And I'm very grateful being from a small town in Canada and getting to live out my dream playing in the National Hockey League. And then, of course, what's happened post-career as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you say very lucky to be, you grew up in Welland, Ontario. Shout out to Welland. I grew up in Ajax, Rose City. Ontario.
Ajax? Okay, there you go.
But I feel like growing up, we all knew someone that made it to the show. We all know an NHL player. I mean, that is like the stereotypical Canadian thing of like, oh, I know so-and-so, or this person's playing in the OHL or the ECHL. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, pretty standard, especially in Ontario, right? I believe there's 5,000 rinks in North America. 1,000 of them are in Ontario, but as far probably 20 in Ajax. Welland's got the main arena and the youth arena. Although I always say I'm fortunate and lucky. During the period of time where I was coming up in my minor hockey league career, we had such unbelievable coaches and you know how you change coaches every year or 2 years, right? We kept getting passed on to people that really cared. We had a coach, Mark LaRose, lawyer. He passed away recently, God rest his soul. He would pay money out of his own pocket to rent us ice or line up exhibition games against teams in Buffalo so we could continually develop our skills. And during this period of time, there was a window of about 5 years. We had 7 NHLers from our hometown of 50,000 people. We had Matt Ellis, Dan Girardi, who just retired, who had a wonderful career, Cal Clutterbuck, who's still playing with the Islanders, Dan Pye, who played with Boston, who ended up winning a Stanley Cup and getting to bring it back home, Jamie Tardif, Nathan Horton, Andre DeVoe. So it was just this, this period of time where our hometown had such great coaches, and I said we were able to develop and get to live out our dreams.
It's so crazy when you think back to like those times, and like whether it was like parents or coaches or whatever, because playing hockey is not cheap. I mean, getting equipment, buying skates, pads, all that. And like when there's kids that just can't afford that. But I always feel like parents came together to make sure that those kids got taken care of.
Yeah. Whether you were comboing all the, everyone packing one car, and it's, and that's the one thing that I think that, overall in Canada, it has gotten even progressively more expensive, especially in order to keep up with the trends of the skill development. Yeah. And it, unfortunately, it does alienate a lot of great athletes, but I think that right now the mind frame is that they're trying to find ways in order to make it more accessible to everyone, not just people, who have parents who have enough money in order to see them be successful at that sport.
Man, you get those rich kids that come out and I shouldn't say one of my first jobs, but my job during all of high school was working at a hockey shop. So when those like Synergy sticks started coming out, and like people would come in and drop so much money on those, shatter them. I mean, I think they were like, you could get a warranty for like 30 days or 30 days on them. But like, good God.
Look at you hustling, selling Synergies, hey? You're like, hey, I'll give you 35 days. I'll buy 2 of them. I'll give you 35 days here.
Yeah. Hold on to those receipts. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So very important question to you. How many ringette games have you been to?
I don't think I've ever been to one. Yeah, no, I've never curled either. And they have a curling club right next to the main arena in Welland as well. So yeah, for all the Canadians out there, they're probably shaking their heads who are listening to this being like, this guy isn't actually Canadian.
Well, that one hurts my soul because I played ringette growing up and nobody knows what the I'm talking about ever. They're like, what? It's like field hockey. I'm like, no, it's still on ice. It's a blue ring. Nobody ever knows.
Do you think that,
unfortunately, you just didn't back me up on it?
Do you think that if women's hockey would have been as popular as it is now, because it's continuing to grow, it's taking on a mind of its own, which is great to see. Do you think that you would have ended up playing women's hockey if that was the case, or did you actually enjoy ringette more?
So I enjoyed ringette more, but it's because more of my girlfriends were playing it at the time. So I started playing hockey as an adult. Like once I hit like 18, 19, I was like, as like my ringette career is winding down, I'm like, I might as well go play in like some women's leagues, because there wasn't a ton of women's leagues to play at the level that I was playing at. So I was like, well, I'll go play hockey because I can't stick handle for shit. I can't do it. I've never
me neither. Maybe I should have played ringette.
We could have.
Damn it, I missed out.
Yeah, it could have been for you. Okay, enough about ringette. Okay, so getting into commentary for you. Once you joined doing commentary, what was that whole thing like for you? I mean, to jump in and do color commentary is no easy feat by any stretch. I mean, whether you're a talker or not, it's hard as
Yeah, you definitely got to find your cadence and when you can hop in or not. I started out on radio with the Coyotes. I will say that because I was also doing television on the broadcast as well, like the pre and post game, which helped me warm me up to get me more comfortable to get my reps in. But given the fact that while I was playing, I started Twitter and social media, and it had opened up all these social media platform and doors. I did become more comfortable at speaking publicly and in front of a camera. Although, as you said, I did have my early struggles as to, what should be said, preparation, when I should be hopping in. But fortunately for me, I had a great play-by-play announcer in Bob Heathouse, who took me under his wing with the Coyotes and just made me feel very comfortable in that role. One tough thing about when I first started with the Coyotes, though, that first year, I hopped into the booth. I don't think we won a game in our first 20 games. And it's hard.
Run out of to say at that point.
Well, that, and I'm a former player who I played with the Coyotes, and I've played with half the guys on the team. And the last thing I want to do is be critical.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, finally, we were headed to get our first win. It was in Philadelphia. We were up 2-0. Well, they pulled a goalie with about a minute and a half, 2 minutes left, and they get one. And so it's like, okay, that's all right. We're good here. You know, we'll settle down, maybe call a timeout. Well, sure enough, they end up tying it up. And I just completely froze on the call, where I was so devastated, and I didn't want to be negative. And I looked at him, and I was like, Heater, I don't even really know what to say right now. And then he took over the call, and, you know, finally we ended up winning in overtime, thank God. And that was like the first game we'd won. But I really struggled with the aspect of trying to keep my credibility, but yet not being too critical of the guys. Cause I was still like going out to eat with some of them. And you know, there was finding that balance, but other than that, and finding my cadence, you know, it took a little bit of time, but finally I warmed up and I became more comfortable at it.
That was always a thing. So I did commentary for WWE on Monday Night Raw, and same thing. It's like you're friends with all these people, and you want, it's like that fine line of credibility. So you know what you're talking about, so you don't get roasted by everybody that's watching the broadcast and all that, but not having your friends hate you by the end of it.
Well, yeah. And exactly that is that you might say something and it might be interpreted by them the wrong way. And you know how hard it could be, you know, being under the radar all the time. And all of a sudden you might say something that might trigger someone, and they might be upset in a corner. And next thing you know, you have a bit of a riff going on. And, you know, I'm a pretty sensitive guy. And I'd imagine, given the fact that you gave it thought, you're probably a sensitive person as well too. And that's like the last thing that I'd want to do. Even in some cases as well, on our podcast, I swear a lot. And that I'm a small town Canadian guy that, F this.
Bud.
Yeah. Can you swear on this podcast?
All the time.
Yeah.
Too much.
That was another problem early on too. I tried to tone it back, but all of a sudden you go from the podcast to this corporate brand where I all of a sudden have to throw the filter in. And there's been cases too where it's messed with me to a point where Todd Walsh, who does the pregame, has thrown it over. And I'm so worried about saying the wrong thing. I'm like, Todd, I completely forgot what I was going to say there, and have to throw it right back over to him. So similar to the play-by-play guy in the radio booth, but I definitely had my struggles early on for sure.
Oh, it's funny because so doing commentary for WWE, and like it was just such a different thing for me, going from being like a TV host where you're like talking long format to doing commentary and being like, oh, you can only jump in at this spot, and these, like, you can't just have a conversation. It doesn't work that way. But Hockey Night in Canada, they were here in Las Vegas, and like, hey, do you want to come call a bit of like a period? I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it was the drizzling. It was so bad. My husband's there and my mom's there, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. They're trying to tee me up. It was easily the most stressed out I've been. I've been doing TV for a long time. I was sweating buckets. It's Hockey Night in Canada. Like, that's
you should have took on like the Snoop Dogg approach to it and just started being like, whoa, what's going on here? And just ripped a huge blunt and just let it fly off the cuff.
Who knew that Snoop Dogg was like the king of commentary? Like,
yeah, he does.
I guess we all should have seen that coming, but he's incredible.
So with the wrestling aspect of it, do you have an idea and like a layout of how all the matches are going to go already before the night even begins? Or is that something just the wrestlers have an idea of?
So it depends. There's certain times that I wouldn't want to know so that I can have a natural reaction to it. But if it's part of somebody's storyline and I kind of need to know in terms of like whether you're going to build someone up or you're going to be like talking about them, depending on whether they're going to win or they're going to lose, it's so much different storytelling rather than calling a straight sport where you are calling what you see. You don't have to really worry about what the storylines are or what the outcome's going to be. You can just call what you see. For us, we've got like heels and baby faces, the good guys and the bad guys. So like if one of the other color commentators was like burying one of the baby faces, I then have to protect them. So you're thinking in like all these different ways to make the storytelling make sense.
So there's good and evil on both sides, even as far as commentary as well.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I haven't followed it in a while, but I always find it intriguing. Now, with the people that they're perceiving to be, because I don't want to say it's acting, but it kind of is to a certain regard. When you roll back the curtains, are there a lot of egos involved in the wrestling world? Like, is it very
as much as you would think? Not as much as you would think. And because they're all these like larger than life characters, it's just a bunch of people that bust their ass. Like wrestling, obviously wrestling is hard.
Grind.
It's the grind of it, of like, there's no, there's not the frills to wrestling that there are with either whether you're an actor or you're an athlete. Like athletes generally get paid more than wrestlers get paid, but we're on the road 365 days a year, basically, never stops, no off seasons, staying in hotels. We're getting our own rental cars and driving from town to town. We don't get the fancy shit like you guys get. So I think that is where a lot of like the humbling comes from.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I did play in the ECHL and we're staying at the cockroach motels. So I've seen the whole world. I wasn't one of those spoon-fed kids who went from junior to the NHL, but I hear you. That's so I also look at wrestling. Like I feel like it went similar to the hockey world where, you know, in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of drinking going on but where now it's very professional. You know, protein shakes, everybody's lifting and on this very serious, because there's so much money to be made now.
Yes. And I think everyone's just so much more educated and aware on their long-term health. I mean, especially I'm sure it's the same for you guys, worrying about concussions, what that can be like post-career, that everyone's, it's really funny. Like even like I spent 8 years in WWE, and from the time that I started, it was still a lot of like, oh, meet me down at the bar afterwards. We'll all hang, we'll order some food, drink, show up to work the next day, like hungover. And as I started to wind down there, it wasn't like that at all anymore. People are like, no one's mailing it in at all. Like it's definitely people.
And especially to stay consistent as you have to travel and handle all that stuff on your own. It would be easy to fall into that rhythm as those guys in the past probably did. Whereas, you know, when you're getting into a city late after having to go, you know, rent a car or whatever it may be, book your own hotel, you still got to get up in the morning, get your lifts in, eat properly. And it's very similar to the hockey world and how it's gotten in how serious the guys are.
And learning from, like, you see some of the older guys. I mean, whether, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but it's like you see the older guys that are like hobbling around a little more. And like, I think that's the thing that's really eye-opening to being like, hey, maybe we should like take care of our bodies a little bit more, not treat them like it's Wonderland, you know?
Yeah. Not just chugging beers and every night and sniffing counters.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So Spittin' Chiclets, you guys are crushing it, obviously. I mean, it's insane. You guys are the #1 hockey podcast in the world. What's the success to this? What is the podcasting success? How do I break into this?
Well, in our case, it was just very organic. I played with a guy, Ryan Whitney, in Pittsburgh, and he was retired and working at the NHL Network. And I remember when we were on a PTO together in St. Louis, we talked about doing some type of, I remember the original idea was something on YouTube where we would show up with the hockey bags into a locker room and we would start getting dressed, but we would never actually go on the ice. We would just crack beers and would let these old stories fly. And I didn't even know what podcasts were. So, after that PTO, I ended up going to finish off my career in the American League. He went over to Russia quickly and then retiring, as I mentioned, and he fired out a tweet saying, hey, how about starting a podcast towards me and another guy we'd played with, Kobe Armstrong. And I was still playing at the time. And I knew that if I was going to hop on one, I would let it fly. And I knew the LA Kings organization was not going to be down.
They banned your Twitter, didn't they?
No, that was actually my agent who called and told me he's like, delete your Twitter account, whatever that even means. Cause he was like, what is Twitter? Yeah. But he's like, nothing good can come of this. That's the only thing he's ever been wrong on, by the way. Shout out Mark Guy of Newport Sports. But Rear Admiral, one of our co-hosts who worked for Barstool at the time, part-time, he was one of the hockey bloggers. He reached out to it and he's like, hey, I'll start one with you. So they started doing it together, just the two of them. And RA was actually editing it and acting as producer. And they did about 20 episodes. Then Barstool, Dave Portnoy reached out to Ryan Whitney, asked him, hey, would you want to come on our platform? They joined up and sure enough, so it was just the two of them. Rear Admiral gets an email one day from some kid named Mike Grinnell saying, hey, if you guys need a producer, I have a mixing board. He saw the email, ignored it because he had his own at the time and he was doing it just fine. And it wasn't at the size of it is now. And sure enough, about a week later, they're recording one of their podcasts and RA's mixer breaks. So he's... Yeah. So he's like, oh, okay. So that episode didn't end up going out. Whit's like, okay, well, when you get a new one, let me know and we'll record the next episode. And he went back to that email and reached out to Mike Grinnell, who is now our producer, runs all of our social media.
Wow.
We got that. He was a kid when he started, and he's grown immensely as far as how much he's helped build it in his ways, merchandise, whatever it may be. And when I retired, I said, hey, let me settle into my Coyotes job and let's talk about me joining up. And sure enough, at the end of my first year in media, I'd already been interviewed a couple times for the show, and I let it fly early in my early days, like telling insane stories, which I probably wouldn't say now. But it ended up
a little bit too many.
Yeah. And I think the overall line of social standard has moved, and luckily I've been able to adapt with it. Well, I'm flirting it. I mean, they're still trying to cancel me, but I'm flirting it.
You got to hold on strong. I actually remember, you probably don't remember this, but we met back in probably like 2009 or 10 when I was working for The Score, and we were doing Gillette Drafted, and you came in.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, it was a long time ago.
There was another wrestling girl, and she moved on. Jackie Redmond. I was drawing a blank there. Who's moved on. She's awesome. And she's, same great motor, works extremely hard. And I remember interviewing with her as well. Yeah. And then just to finalize it, it went from, around 40, 50,000 downloads an episode to now between YouTube and our podcast platforms, about 600,000 downloads per episode. So it just took on a mind of its own. And the whole basis is just opening up all hockey fans to the old school stories and getting great one-on-one interactions with these amazing personalities and characters of the game. So I'm extremely grateful, and it's been a fun ride. And we also do a ton of video stuff as well. We do sandbaggers and golf content. It's been crazy.
Do you ever have a hard time interviewing NHL players? Because I feel like there's always that stigma of like, it's hard to get NHL players to open up and get them to talk and get their personalities to shine. It's got to be different for you because you know all these guys. I mean, when I have wrestlers on, it's so easy because I know them all. I know all their dirt. I know all their shit. Is it the same for you when you have hockey players on?
Yeah, the current players, they get nervous. And I'll say this. I think that I understand why, because every single thing they say, if it's taken out of context, but I'll say that's why the guys like coming on our platform to give the most, because it's long form. Yeah. It's not just a little, a tweet with one line that they said where people can spout off where it is taken out of context. Yeah. So, but yes, the younger guys are a little bit more difficult, where the older retired guys who, they don't have to deal with the pressures of dealing with their names being in the media, other than, of course, our podcast. They come on and they let it fly. We just had Brent Sutter on, who's now coaching in Red Deer, and he owns a team there. And he was telling these old school tales that had people's jaws on the floor. Like it was when dinosaurs were roaming the earth.
Well, I saw the one highlight from that what he made his whole team use only wooden sticks for a month or something.
Yeah. So he came from an era where there was bench brawls every other game, and they had a very good team. And they I think they went on to win the Memorial Cup that year.
Oh, nice.
And they were playing a little soft, and I don't think they were being as accountable as he'd liked. So he had his trainer go out and buy 24 wood sticks. And it kind of leads back to you talking about the synergies. This is when all the synergies had taken over, these one pieces. So these kids are, flying around, playing a little bit of a softer game. And he said his trainer,
flex on there.
He goes, go to the local hockey shop, get 24 wood sticks. So they played the first period of that next game, and they were still in that little funk that they'd been in, not playing well. So he came in after the first period, he went around, grabbed every guy's one piece stick one by one. So they're probably in their heads wondering, like, what's going on right here? Well, then he comes back in the room after walking out with all their one pieces. He drops all the wood sticks in the middle of the room. He says, you guys are using this from now on. And they each got one wood stick, and they had to make it last. And he said that they ended up coming back winning 7-3 that game.
7-3, that's a high scoring game.
They scored 7 unanswered with the wood sticks. They had to put white tape on the blade and write work on the front in Sharpie and on the back in Sharpie. And he made them use those sticks for the next month. And he said, I don't think they lost the game. And then they started
old school like that.
They started selling mini sticks in the pro shop that had the white tape and had work written on it. It was the highest selling item they had in the store. And he said every kid in town had one.
I missed mini sticks in like a decade. Nothing better than being in like a hotel tournament and everyone's just like ripping around.
Yeah, and your knees are all rug burned out.
Yeah.
And your shin pads hurt to put on because you've been playing mini sticks till
Sweaty
1 a.m. because you're drinking Coke.
Yeah, straight up Coke, like a million all sugared calories, all sugar, so bad. Speaking of, we've got Pink Whitney. So that was another thing that just like blew up for you guys. I mean, I know you talk about this stuff all the time. This is nothing new to you, but for a wrestling fan base that's listening to this, I mean, that was also just that organic thing where you guys were talking about what you mix your new Amsterdam vodka with. Ryan Whitney says pink lemonade. And now you've sold what, over 15 million bottles of this vodka?
Yeah, it took on a mind of its own, and I can't even. I'm still in shock that it blew up as much as it did, and it just goes to show, if you listen to your fans and your consumer, that if you give them what they want, they'll go out and buy it rapidly. Excuse me. The crazy part about it is it's also though grown past people who just listen to the podcast. I mean, I think Florida is one of our biggest states. I know hockey has grown there. Florida likes to have a good time. And given the fact that COVID basically didn't even exist in Florida when it was going on.
They ignored it entirely.
Yeah, it was business as usual. So it's popped off in all these places where hockey isn't even really that prevalent. And the flavored vodka market has also popped off. So we're going to continue trying to grow that and also expand in different product development. And we'll see where else it goes.
How is it playing in those like non-hockey markets? I mean, even just me seeing the growth of the Golden Knights here in Las Vegas. Now we're getting our own AHL team literally around the corner from my house. I'm so excited to go to these games. What is it like being, I guess, I mean, you've not been in that situation per se, but when you go in and play in some of those other markets?
Well, I played 5 years in Phoenix, right?
So Phoenix is not a big hockey town. Yeah. No,
it's not a traditional market. Now, mind you, it maybe in a couple cases it has popped off like Vegas, but I think it's awesome to see they've established themselves, I think, as the best fans in the league, and they've only been in the league for 3 years now.
Yeah.
And I think that what they did in preparation, in the way that they rolled it out and made it Vegas-like, it is so unique in its own regard. I am not shocked as to how the popularity has popped off, and I'm looking forward to getting there with our whole Chiclets crew in order to demonstrate the fanatics and the fan base and some of the people that are sitting lower bowl.
To come like set up here. You guys should like take over one of the casinos and just like, that would be awesome.
We're coming in May. We are
yes.
So hopefully we can link up and maybe
I'm coming down. I'm coming on the podcast. Like
done. And then maybe your husband can slam me through a mat or something.
Done and done. So I've been trying to get him to be a bigger hockey fan. He's from Cincinnati, and he like, it's just so funny to me how hockey in different pockets in the US is just not that popular. Like, I don't understand but at the same time, as soon as you get someone to come to a hockey game that's not been there, like, oh, this is my favorite sport to see live.
That's the key. That's the key, is getting them in the building. If anybody had not been a hockey fan and went and witnessed a game in that first year, the Golden Knights were there, they were begging somebody to buy season tickets.
Yes.
It is the best atmosphere in town.
I'm so pissed I did not buy those season tickets. I was like saying literally last night, because like growing up in Ontario, you cannot get season tickets to the Leafs. You have to be grandfathered into that. There's no other way to get them. So when it was available here, I was like, damn, we should have jumped on that. We did not. But now I feel like we got to jump on the AHL ones just for
sure.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely going to trickle down at the amount of people that probably can't get the seasons for the Golden Knights. But as far as Toronto's concerned, you basically have to give up your first newborn.
Yes.
Which, I mean,
I could.
You have.
Ready.
Oh, so that's why you got one coming. So you get a few lower bowl seats.
My bartering chip.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard in Toronto too, because you got all the suits in the lower bowl who are still, doing key bumps and enjoying their cocktails halfway through the period, and that's why it's half empty sometimes.
Key bumps. What is your favorite town to go play hockey in?
Ooh, so I would say, as far as road trips were concerned, when I was playing with the Coyotes, I always loved going to Nashville.
Hell yes. I was hoping that's what you were going to say. I could feel that's what you were going to say.
Yeah, they have another wild, unique fan base. Hockey is completely grown in a non-traditional market, and it was always the town where you would get all the guys out together, because especially the divide between the younger guys and older guys. When I came in with the Coyotes, we had a group of younger guys where we would go to clubs and we would do, go where the young girls were.
Yeah.
And they were all married and they weren't interested in that, but going to these pubs or bars that had the live music, that was their type of atmosphere where I also enjoyed it. And it was fun interacting with these teammates that you wouldn't get to see in those types of settings usually. And that was always we did a rookie party there one time. We would usually try to do a team dinner every time we went there. And Shane Doan was our captain. He's from, Western Canada out in Alberta, and he's a big, Western and country fan. He never drank, but when we went there, he'd usually have a few pops and enjoy himself. So it was good seeing the whole crew.
Let it rip a little bit. Yeah. I always feel like that seems like getting drafted to the Predators would be the way to go. You got to have your fingers crossed to end up in a town like that.
And also, not only are you getting an unbelievable fan base, but you could go out in the community and you're not getting mobbed like you would in Toronto or right. Really anywhere in Canada. So you have the great following, yet you have your privacy away from the rink. And it's funny, one time we went there and we were out partying, and it might have even been our rookie party.
What happens at a rookie party?
So rookie party, quickly, I'll just go back. We ended up seeing Tom Green, who was out doing I know. And we became buddies. And every time he was in Phoenix doing live shows for his comedy tour, we would go, and he came over to a few after parties we had at Wayne Gretzky's house one time. He was playing so it was cool meeting him. That was one of the coolest parts. I have a lot of
follow-ups to this whole story.
Tom Green is the man. Hopefully I could put you guys in touch and you can get him on. He was an incredible interview.
I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show or not before. I think maybe I have, but one of my early acting gigs, I'll put that in air quotes, gigs, was being in a Tom Green music video. So I
which one?
It's called Teachers Suck. And I was one of the in Autumn Leaves.
you were like a video vixen before video vixens.
Oh my God. Yes, I was a video vixen. I jump up from behind this desk in a bikini and it's slow-mo. What is hanging out at Wayne Gretzky's house like?
So his sons were going to ASU at the time, and he was coaching here. The year that he didn't come back was my first year, and we had Dave Tippett as a coach. But I believe the housing market had taken a pretty big hit here, so he wasn't going to sell his place. So one of my good friends now, Joey Superstein, was living with the Gretzky boys as they were going to ASU. So they had this mansion and they were throwing parties every weekend. So given the lifestyle I was living back then, I was right in the mix with that. So we were having a blast. And as I mentioned, Tom Green was doing a live comedy show here. He invited us to it. We went out with a bunch of teammates and then went out afterward. And then when he was done his second show, ended up coming to the after hours party, busted out the acoustic guitar. I think he played some of his classic,
I should have been there. I could have jumped in.
Yeah. Unleash the fury. But you asked about the rookie parties. So this is cool. Every year.
Thank you for keeping me on track. That's why you're the better podcaster than me. You're keeping on the rails here. I appreciate it.
Yeah. My ADD is actually done quite well today.
I like it.
It's not non-existent. Thanks, Adderall. No, but, the rookie parties is a cool dynamic. And I was fortunate where we would get capped at $5,000 per rookie. And I think we had 5 rookies that year where you pay for the vets. You go to a very nice meal that usually the leadership group lines up. They tend to beat up the credit cards. They'll make sure they get the fancy wine lists and you're drinking Opus One. And sometimes they'll even stretch it out and go get a Screaming Eagle. They'll bring out they made me do a Texas Prairie Fire, I believe they called the shot. So it was Louis the 13th, which is I think $100 a shot. And they put Tabasco sauce in it. So I had to chug that down. Mine was in Chicago. We went to Gibson Steakhouse, and then afterward, you go to the nightclub or whatever party setting. Given that we had Shane Doan as the captain, a few of the cases we were a little more tame. I mentioned the one in Nashville, and you just do the dinner. You make all the rookies get up, tell stories during dinner, tell jokes. They boo you off stage. In some cases, they even make the rookies dress up. We never had to dress up, but it's just a great night to go enjoy with the boys midway through the season to blow a little steam off. And then you blow it up at the club, you share some laughs, you talk about it the next day at the rink while you're getting bag skated, sweating out all the booze and whatever else you consumed. And the rookies treat the vets. The tough part is in some cases there's only one rookie. Oh, shit. And I've heard stories of guys getting a bill racked up to about 30 grand where they don't, their credit card
dinner, or is that like the club too?
Dinner and club where they go a little bit.
That Opus and the Screaming Eagle, that's going to add up real quick.
Yeah. And then you go pop bottles at a club. It gets a little bit ridiculous sometimes. And I would never, if I was a leader of a team, make a guy spend probably more than $5,000.
Yeah, that's going to hit you hard.
So,
unless they have a very promising career ahead of them, but otherwise.
This is probably because it was Ray Bork's kid and they knew that he has a pretty good trust fund coming towards him, given his old man made quite a bit. But the son, Chris Bork, I want to say he got called up to Washington and he ended up getting dinged for $30,000 and he was the only rookie. And I don't think his credit card even accepted it. So they had.
Yeah.
But the worst part about it, he got called up for a few games when they had it, and then he got sent down. So he lost money getting called up to the NHL that time.
Poor guy. Damn. Well, I mean, that is like a way classier kind of rookie party. I was expecting it to be like, you always hear those like tales of like hockey parties, like when we're in like high school and stuff.
Oh yeah. Those times. True? Yeah, where the two-way rubber's coming out and you got a few girls in the mix. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'll try to keep it classy, but that wasn't going on.
You don't have to keep it classy here. I don't give a shit. But I mean, you hear those stories all the
Tupperware
time.
Party.
Like, whoo. But you guys are doing it classy. I appreciate it.
If you wanted to do that stuff, you had to go do it on your own, not under Shane Doan's umbrella.
No, he seems like a very, very respectable man.
The best.
Yeah.
One of the greatest humans I've ever met in my life. Given all the responsibility he had on the ice and in the community, always had time. There would be games where I would be leaving the rink. I was a bit of a rink rat, so I would always be one of the last ones. He'd still be in his undergear talking to fans in the hallway. And it wasn't just that, hey guys, good to meet you. One question, you out. He would talk to you like you were friends for life, sometimes 30, 45 minutes. His wife must have been extremely patient because he'd be getting home at probably 12:30, 1 o'clock after games most nights, just because he felt the need that he had to be the ambassador and just that's who he is as a person.
Are those cupping bruises on your arms?
Yeah.
What is that? Just like pulls out toxins?
Yeah. So in my case, I'm a very tense individual where I think when the blood just gets stuck in the muscles, it just pulls it out so it's able to circulate through your body. Mm-hmm. Now you could tell in some areas where it does get stuck more, where I have some on my back here. I'll give you an example.
Give us a showcase of it.
Some of them are zits. So ignore those.
we'll put a filter on it.
But so some of them can get.
Oh my gosh. Okay. It's just your butt.
Drop my headphones.
Showed us your butt.
But see, some of them are pretty bad.
Oh, there they are. Oh yeah. Jeez.
Or did I lose it?
Whew.
My thing got pulled out. Uh-oh.
It's okay. We can still hear you. The struggle of trying to like move around with a podcast. It's not easy, but it's okay.
I'm messing up this interview.
No, you're good. You probably can't hear me right now, but it's okay.
I got you now.
There you go. Yeah, you're good. I mean, you gave us a showcase of your butt. Hopefully we'll get some likes and some views.
Did you see the marks?
Yeah, they're gnarly.
Yeah. So some in those areas, they get pretty dark. Have you ever done cupping?
Never, but I'm intrigued by it. I don't know that I don't think that the way that I train necessarily means that I need to go get cupping done.
Well, I barely train now as far as weights are concerned, just because my body's so banged up. I just do hiking, and I'll keep it simple with push-ups and sit-ups. But some people swear by it. Other people might say it's a gimmick. I think it's it works for me, and I would recommend anybody who who gets tense in some areas to try it to relieve some stress.
What are some of the pressures that one feels being an enforcer in the NHL? Like, that seems like a tall order to be like, hey, you got to go out and like punch someone in the face. That's your gig.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a hard time pregame napping, knowing games I was going to play, especially if I knew that the other team had a heavyweight in the lineup. Mm-hmm. I love sticking up for teammates. It didn't come natural to me. So I think that over the years, it definitely took its toll mentally.
Yeah.
But I understood that with my skill level and my ceiling as far as where it was, that if I was going to play in the league, that I had to adapt and add that to my game. And I was willing to do it. And, and I don't think that there's a lot of guys out there who had, I guess, enough skill to make it to where adding that would have put them over the edge in order to solidify themselves to at least have somewhat of a decent career. Mm-hmm. And I was just willing to do that. I wanted to experience the NHL. I was actually a defenseman before I got to the NHL. I played under 18 for Team Canada. I played in the OHL.
Yeah, you were on that team with like a hell of a lineup too, huh?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, you guys what a time. God, I miss like being able to watch those games so much more easily, like the World Juniors at like Christmas and all that. It's the best. But you guys had a stacked year. Yeah.
So I was, unfortunately, I didn't make the World Juniors, but the under 18 team I played with, majority of those guys went on to help Canada win gold at the World Juniors. But it wasn't in the cards. And at a certain point, what happens is some guys get a little bit stubborn in what they think they are as a player, to where they keep getting traded around, to where it's like, well, if you don't want to adapt and change some style of your play, the world-class skill in the room in the top six, these guys have so much God-given talent, and they also have the work ethic, and they have it all. And if you're unable to adapt and start working on these other skills, whether it be you become a good penalty killer and shot blocker and good on face-offs, or become very reliable defensively, if certain guys are going to stay stubborn and they didn't end up playing a game in the NHL, hey, all the power to them. I just knew that the writing was on the wall, and that was pretty much the only way that I was going to get there. And it had its consequences, but it's all over now, and I'm grateful that I decided to do it.
What do you mean of the consequences?
So I would say that at the age I was at, and given maybe the stresses of not really understanding it at the time, it was more of a like, yes, I have to do this because I'm so hyper focused on wanting to get to the NHL. Just maybe because of a lot of the stress involved in it. Alcohol, like abusing alcohol, doing drugs, getting sucked into this certain lifestyle that, I look back on, and I don't regret it. It was more like, it was not my lifestyle was not being managed properly. Mm-hmm. Am I blaming the fighting for that? No, I just think that I know the emotions and feelings that it was causing, and I gravitated to certain things in order to mask that. I think.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you still, I again, thank you, wikipedia.org. Do you still dabble in the marijuanas, or I read something about you microdosing mushrooms or something? Are these things that you're into?
Yeah, I smoke cannabis quite a bit. It's just, it helps me get creative, because I do get to live in this creative world now. Like I've done like silly commercials, and I put myself out there maybe more than other people. And sometimes some of these ideas that I do think of stem from, ripping a joint and just sitting around being like, hey, wouldn't it be stupid to do this? Yeah, I think that'd be funny. Okay, let's go do it. Let's execute it. So there's this big argument as to some of it's scientifically backed as far as the consequences from head trauma. Mm-hmm. I would push back on some of the ideologies of it, and the fact that I feel that maybe the things that I was masking, whatever I was going through with, have caused just as much, if not more. Alcohol, like dehydrating your brain as much as we were binge drinking, like in 30 drinks in a day, getting up and also with drugs involved, and then doing that for 4 straight days on this bender.
You don't even think about it at the time.
Yeah.
And then you're used to feeling like at that point.
We talked about it earlier, how these wrestlers would do it.
Yeah.
So same idea, abusing your body, and instead of getting massage and treating it and eating healthy the right way, you're like, oh, I'll go get banged up, and I'll it won't hurt as much because I'm gonna, I'll be completely distracted from it. So I just found that some days I wake up not feeling so great and groggy, and the mind's not there, and microdosing and taking mushrooms puts me in a little bit of a happier place. It just it makes me happier. I look at.
I've always been very curious by that. I mean, I have other friends that do that. Like, how does that, like, when you say microdosing, and I am like such a newbie, I don't know anything about it. Is it just a smaller amount? Smaller
amount. Yeah, I'm not trying to see midgets jumping out of trees and walking around town like, what the hell's the fuck dragon? What the fuck?
Yeah.
No, it's you get a sense of being a little bit more happy. In my case, that's my experience with it. And that's what I tell anybody who I'll describe, what the feelings I had going into it, how it made me feel. And that might vary. Some people hate it. They hate the way they feel when their body goes somewhere else or their mind goes somewhere else. But for me, doing small amounts of it, what's the saying nowadays? It's like, I woke up and chose anger. I woke up and chose peace. It just, I just tend to be happier when I'm on it. On the days where I wake up not feeling so great.
Do you have like a social anxiety or anything like that those kind of help you to open up and be a little more?
Smoking weed helps me in public big time.
And
surprisingly,
people expect a certain thing from you at this point as well. So that's got to be a lot of pressure.
Yeah. The last thing I would want to do, and remember, like, we got a podcast and maybe I'm a little bit more recognized in Canada now. Like, I'm not a celebrity by any means. But anytime somebody comes up, you want their experience to be as good as maybe they'd hoped going in. And sometimes maybe you're just, you're in your own head and you're completely distracted by something that you're going through in your own personal life. And you maybe don't have that energy to give someone, but going into social settings, surprisingly, cannabis helps me. It just helps me be sillier and more interact better with them. But yes, I do suffer from a bit of social anxiety. I think it's so bizarre because I just want to live on my podcast and tell all these like weird stories and do all this stuff but I also just want to walk around and like people, like no one to know, like, I'm a nobody.
Well, I feel like you're like becoming like the King of Phoenix. That's like, you're like,
oh no, we got Larry Fitzgerald here. We have Shane Doan. And I think part of it too is maybe I'm a little, not in those guys' case, cause they're extremely relatable, but I guess I'm a little bit more relatable in the sense where I was like the average Joe who wasn't even really that good, who got to experience it. And throughout my entire career, I don't mind interacting with the people who are buying tickets or the people who want a little bit of a light inside what the world is actually like. And that's exactly what the podcast is. This is what's happening inside. And these are what these guys are actually like behind closed doors. They're normal, just like everybody else.
Just a bunch of guys. I mean, I was listening to your last episode of you guys just talking about like going to like Disney World and it's just dudes doing their life.
We're clowns.
Yeah. People want to hear those stories. So we talked earlier about social media. You've had to like delete your Twitter account. You've done it multiple times. You've been very successful on social media, but I believe that there's some kind of story about playing in Winnipeg and some kind of tweeting about water or something. What happened?
Yeah. So of course, so when when my agent told me to delete my Twitter account, he said nothing good could come of it. The team was getting emails from fans saying, why are you censoring this guy? And they assumed that the team had me delete it. Well, they reached out and they're like, are you telling people this? I said, no, my agent wanted me to do it. So finally I ended up hopping back on Twitter and Instagram. But with that, they said, we want to monitor it. I must have got called in 5 or 6 times by the general manager or the team PR guy being like, hey, what's this? And in one of the cases, we got to Winnipeg and we were staying at the Fairmont, and it was just a young, dumb, immature thing because they ended up giving us water at the front when we come up with fruit and all but they had a $8 or $9 bottle of Fiji water in the room. Mm-hmm. And, it's like they're gouging you at that point. Yeah. I know this thing didn't cost $9. Come on. So I posted a picture of it on Instagram, and I was like, I wrote, F off Fairmont, and I tagged Fairmont. So the next morning, all good, go to the rink, big game tonight, back in Winnipeg, because that's where the team ended up coming from. They moved from Winnipeg to Phoenix. Yeah. Big rivalry. I know that I get the word that I'm not playing, so I get skated afterward, but I do notice that I'm getting skated a little bit harder. And I did notice that the coach came out afterward to talk to our assistant, and that's why I got skated harder than normal. So after I got done my bag skate, the assistant goes, "Hey, Tip wants to see you." So right away, my heart goes from here to in my gut. So I get in the coach's office, and there's smoke coming out of his ears, and he goes, "Sit down." And he's like, "What the is this?" And I look at the monitor, and it's the bottle of Fiji. And he goes, "The Fairmont is threatening us to kick us out of the hotel on the day of the game because you're going at them online here." So not only am I a completely useless player, I'm not even playing in the game that day, and I'm jeopardizing my team getting a pregame nap day of the game because I wanted to spout off on social media the day before about how. I
mean, F off with that expensive ass Fiji water. Give us a break.
But they also supplied free water in the bottom, and I'm a man of the people, and that's why I said it. Okay, Renee.
You're the voice of the voiceless.
But at the end of the day, I probably shouldn't have done it, and it was just another example of me getting ahead of my skis in the social media world. And I'll give you one other quick one. So I ended up going to Vegas for one of the All-Star breaks. And one of my teammates at the time, this is just past New Year, he'd sent me like a meme, and it was Happy New Year and cocaine lines and somebody snorting it. And it was just like, oh, haha.
Sure.
So I was running around Vegas, and this is, I think, in the midst of when all this Charlie Sheen stuff became a thing. And I had a BlackBerry at the time, and I didn't lock my screen. And somehow it had opened up my Twitter and went to that picture, and it just kept reposting the picture.
What?
So I get a phone call from our PR guy being like, what is going on? But obviously I didn't mean to post it and would have never posted that. But fortunately enough, it had posted it so many times where everybody was like, oh, obviously he got hacked.
Yeah.
Yes.
God.
Yes, I got hacked. Ran with that. Ended up, logging in, deleting all the photos or whatever. Like, because at that point I was having a hard time deleting all the photos on my BlackBerry. It wasn't deleting, so I had to go to a computer at the hotel, log in, delete all that, and those were just the silly, stupid things along the way that I found myself in these crazy situations. But the needle has definitely moved, and I'm far more tame now on social media than I was before.
Well, you're a businessman. You've got to do, and you've got big companies that you're working with, so it all makes sense. And one last question before I let you go. I've been kind of tipped off that you used to watch old wrestling matches with Shane Doan and Keith Yandel. Was this like prepping for fights and all that?
No, we had Keith Yandel, Jason LaBarbera, and Shane Doan, who were big wrestling fans, and there were a few others on the team. And it was actually LaBarbera and Yandel who sat in front of me, and they would watch all the old WrestleManias. And even though they knew the results, Jason LaBarbera is one of a hardcore wrestling fan.
I'll have to get him on the show.
He would be able to talk wrestling till he's blue in the face, and even to the point where that season, they got the fine fund together of the team, and they ended up buying a actual championship belt. And I believe from the guy who actually makes them for the WWE.
Oh, hell yeah.
In order to hand out our player of the game. The belt costs like $5,000 to make.
Yeah. Those things are no joke. They're heavy too.
And they're heavy. So we started presenting our player of the game with a Arizona Coyotes championship belt. And that just stemmed from the love for old school wrestling. Now, I paid attention to the Stone Cold era, to the Mankind era, of course, Undertaker, Ric Flair. I went to one wrestling event when I was playing in Wheeling, West Virginia, and Ric Flair was at it. And I think Tatanka even came out of retirement for that specific show. So I love the age of the Stone Cold Steve Austin. What was it called? The Attitude Era?
The Attitude Era, yeah.
And what was the era before it called?
I mean, the Attitude Era was really like the only like what I would say is like the true era that like had its own name. Everything else is like pre or post Attitude Era. Generally.
And it went on this pretty wild 20-year run, I would say. NWO. I was so invested into it just because of the personalities, and that kind of stemmed my or started my love for wrestling, and it continued into the NHL days, having to watch the monitor off these guys ahead of me going nuts to all these old school matches.
Especially Ric Flair. You want to throw down and have a good time with somebody, it's with Ric Flair. He doesn't like, he parties. He's slowed down because he has to, but partying with Ric Flair is exactly what you would anticipate it to be. It's magical.
Yeah, he looks like he's lived the life of 1,000 men.
Yeah, he has. I mean, the fact that he has just gone through so many different, whether it's health issues or being in and out of the ring, whatever. I mean, that guy he
keeps on going.
He's the greatest of all time. Yeah. Oh, I just got woo!
Woo!
My little update from my producer here. We've got Golden Era, New Generation, Attitude Era, then Ruthless Aggression. I didn't really know that they had to go in those orders, but Attitude Era is the main one that, especially from like our generation, that people always remember this.
Was there any? I mean, I left out The Rock. I think he came in towards maybe the end of that.
Yeah.
Talk about a guy who has branded himself. Holy,
give me a little bit of that success. Damn.
His motor is unmatched.
Yeah. He is unbelievable. Yeah. He's someone I never really got to spend any time with because he was obviously gone by the time that I was in there. And when he would come through for like WrestleManias or whatever, I mean, he's so busy during his day. So I've not really got to like hang out with him, but like the magic of The Rock, he's like one of those people who just has that like aura around him. He is like a next level, meant to be a star.
It's like he's pumping on mega endorphins every day.
Yes.
How could be one that happy working so much?
Is it bottled somewhere? Can we purchase this? Because I would, and I need it desperately.
It's in Zoa, his energy drink.
yeah.
He's finally released it.
Maybe we pair that up with some pink Whitney, and you guys will be off to the races.
We're gonna create a couple RTDs. We got some really cool things in the mix right now, and I'm happy for it. It's this crazy alcohol world. I love it. Okay, well, listen, when you guys are out here in May, I'm gonna swing down. We're gonna have a hang. I cannot wait. Actually, that's like just around the corner. It's already almost. Do you think your husband would give us a training in wrestling where you could also be on the sideline, maybe interviewing the guys while he's slamming me through the mat?
I can be his Miss Elizabeth, and I'll let him do.
You'll come out with him with the outfit on, and
I'll get like the long gloves on, the like poofy dress. Yeah, if we can get him to come down and teach you guys some wrestling, you guys teach him some hockey stuff, I feel like it'd be a match made in heaven.
We'll let him give me the bare hand slap on the chest.
I don't think you want one of those. Those are gnarly.
I saw a picture of him. He looks like a beast.
He is. He's a wild man.
We'll have him do a bare hand slap on my chest. I'll give it to him.
Got to get that content out there. There's that.
That's what I'm saying.
That buzzworthy content. All right, listen, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun getting to hang out with you. My first hockey player here on the podcast. Good to see you're doing so well, bud.
Hey, congrats on all your success as well. Keep it going. And it's an honor coming on. I was pretty pumped when Jeff, my manager, reached out that you wanted me on. So an honor to be the first hockey player too.
Yes.
You picked the biggest fourth line plug of all time. Not any superstar.
I knew that I would get you to talk and that it would be a fun conversation. So now I can like branch out and get some other hockey players on the show too. Awesome. Well, look, I'm going to see you here in May. Come on out. We'll get some stuff going for the Golden Knights. We've got AHL here, all of the hockey out here in the desert. Cannot wait.
Hey, I'll see if I can repay the favor by getting you some tickets and maybe we can all go watch together.
Let's do that.
Or scalp them and retire.
And they have they've got poutine in the foyer, so we can get poutine and Canadian it up.
Something to think about. Think of everything at that arena.
Something to think about. I was so pumped when I found that out. Oh my God.
Maybe we could even do the sword fight at the beginning. on the ice.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would be amazing. I would
Yeah.
love that. Actually, one quick story. My husband and I, we did get to go out and they had us ride the Zamboni between periods. And we're like, oh my God, this will be so cool. I didn't realize how long it was.
Oh, it's a long
You're
ride.
like not allowed to wave the towel. So I didn't know what to do. And I started waving it. They're like, stop waving the towel. Because if it goes under the Zamboni, it like jacks it up. It was a terrifying. I felt like I was just
your adrenaline's so high, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm going to be on this thing, and people are going to be staring at me for another 10 minutes.
Because everyone goes up like during the intermission to go get their drinks. There's like nobody in the stands. I'm just like staring at empty seats like a loser. Oh
then
my God.
They start playing all by myself. I don't want to be. Well, listen, thank you again for having me on. And like I said, best of luck with everything. And I'm looking forward to getting slammed through the mat in May.